Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Join me to talk about Tommy Robinson. What topic? And he's out in Dubai. We've all seen the original clip, but we're going to have a little look at an update from him explaining what he meant.
Insane. 9%. Yes, the majority of paedophiles in the UK are white. The majority of paedophiles have normal police enforcement against them. My point was, which I've made multiple times, is Muslims make up 4%, 5% of the UK, and they're responsible for 90% of the convictions of men that are raping in groups. It's a different sort of paedophilia, yeah? There's two different types. This dumb bitch done any research, you know this, yeah? But all she seems concentrated on, for some reason, is continually attacking us while apparently opposing the state and opposing digital ID. I haven't got a bank account. I can't get a bank account in the UK. I bet she can. Yeah? I bet she has faced nowhere near a little minuscule.
Poor Tommy Robinson, he's been persecuted a lot, according to him. He makes the point that I haven't seen the statistics, but he's arguing that there are a disproportionate amount of Muslims involved in the sexual crimes that he mentioned, even though he acknowledges that the majority of people that commit those crimes are white because it's a white country. So, yeah, and the crime he mentioned is in groups who are grooming people who are grooming gangs. We even got a name for that term. Does the fact that other people are guilty of similar crimes but not in groups, does that negate his reason or his right to focus on that crime, even if he is focusing only on that crime because he's got something against Muslims? It doesn't make the crime okay. We can only sort of question his motives for focusing on that one particular crime when there are others. But then it just becomes, it's whataboutery, isn't it? To say, oh yeah, but what about this? What about that? I don't know. Even if his only reason for focusing on that crime is because he's an Islamophobe, and you could go through every sort of demographic and find a crime that demographic is more predisposed to committing, couldn't you? There's certain crimes that are predominantly white people, are disproportionately white people. There are certain crimes that are disproportionately every different religion. But does the fact that he's focusing on that crime because of his bias, it doesn't change the fact that the crime is still wrong, does it? I don't know. I don't wish to defend Tommy Robinson because personally, I'm against his politics. But I'm just trying to look at it logically, and try and think outside the box. What about Nick Ferrari and the word intifada? That word's been thrown around a lot lately, and the term globalize the intifada. Some people are trying to portray it as Islamophobic. Let's hear from Nick Ferrari.
Violence, having terms of violence, Minister. I think calling for to globalise the intifada can only really have.
She can't say it.
I'm not sure what other interpretation there is of intifada other than like an uprising. It's intifada, of course. Intifada. Yes. Sorry, excuse me. Is to call for uprising. And look, we've seen what can happen in an environment where the idea of calling people to arms or violence, that is a very real thing that is happening across our country. The Home Secretary is undertaking a review specifically of public order and hate crime to make sure that the police have the exact tools across the country that they need to deal with this issue, and has invested heavily £10 million extra this year to a total of 28 million in ensuring that safety and security of our Jewish community and their schools and places of worship and elsewhere is absolutely a primary priority of the government.
So you will share the dismay of many that the BBC described the Intifada on its website as largely unarmed and popular.
I mean, I haven't seen that, but look, to me, when you say when people start shouting things like globalizing, like the connotation is clear.
Right. So she's very much of the opinion that you can't just go around saying globalize the intifada. Well, there were actually technically 2 intifadas, and I don't think there has been one for a couple of decades. A few years ago, when the resistance was getting quite active in the West Bank, people were contemplating calling it the 3rd intifada, but there's only actually been 2. And this word intifada means like throwing off, getting rid of an enemy, and an uprising, resistance to the occupation. I mean, that's what it meant in context. And during the intifada, the whole of the West Bank was under curfew, and you couldn't come out of your house. It was like lockdown, but enforced by the military, if you can imagine what that is like. But this word has been commandeered by the international solidarity movement. It's part of the vocabulary now. Is it anti-Semitic? I mean, you're talking about resisting the state of Israel, not people in other countries. Surely, isn't this comparable to when the world boycotted apartheid South Africa, and no one would play sport against South African football team, cricket team? That wasn't anti-white, was it? Because that was a white supremacist state. Stone at 7,000 or 75,000 saying, could you sing Happy Birthday? It's my birthday. Well, Stone, I do offer, if you join the members, the top price premium, I do actually offer personalized happy birthday songs. But, why not? It's your birthday. How old are you? Are you 75,000 years old? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. I can't sing too loud. Happy birthday, dear Stone 75,000. Happy birthday to you. And he's 17. Gosh, when I was your age, I had it all to look forward to. Happy birthday, Stone. I hope you pass your driving test or whatever it is people can do when they're 17. Stone, what's your take on globalize the intifada? Is that a phrase you don't want to hear bandied about on the streets of London, or do you stand with the Palestinians? I wonder. I don't really know who the demographic that this channel mainly appeals to, because I do get a lot of sympathizers with the Palestinian cause, because I sort of followed that for many years. But then you get a lot of people that are actually on the other side. But that's good. I think we need to have that discussion. The problem with all this algorithms and all the channels that we have now, people end up just watching more of the same stuff they agree with. So I like it when we get people with a different point of view. And if anyone wants to join me, you don't have to put your face on camera. You can be audio only. If you click the link in the description, we'll get you on. If you want, no pressure. While we're on the topic of Zionism, why don't we hear from this woman whose name I can't remember. It will come to me in a moment. Melanie Phillips. Melanie Phillips. Strong Israel supporter, and she begrudges what Britain did back in the day. Let's have a listen.
Britain denies its own history. Hardly anybody in Britain has any idea of what Britain did to the Jews in the 1930s, in which Britain ripped up international law, under which it was obliged to settle the Jews alone throughout what is now Israel, the disputed territories of the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, and Gaza, on the basis that only the Jews were entitled to live there, because it was only the Jews for whom that was ever their national kingdom. Britain had accepted that duty in the 1930s. It tore it up, and under the pressure of the terrorism and the pogroms that were being conducted by Hitler's ally in the Middle East, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, who had promised Hitler that if Hitler came to power, the Grand Mufti would annihilate every Jew in the Middle East. Under the leadership of this terrible man, the Arabs of what was then Mandate Palestine were waging a terrorist war against both the Jews and the British. And faced with this, the British then tore up international law and offered the Arabs part of what the Jews alone were entitled to. That was the original two-state solution invented by the British, in which they offered the Arabs a state of their own as a reward, as an inducement, as a means of stopping, but basically in response to a campaign of genocide against the Jews. The British decided to give the people waging that war a reward. That was the two-state solution. It's a reward for genocidal aggression, and the British are still at it. This whole terrible century-old war of annihilation against the ancestral Jewish homeland being reborn in this country is ultimately the fault of Britain, because it set in train the idea in the West that in order to bring peace in the Middle East, you had to reward the people who were waging a campaign of genocidal terror, which you would rebrand as a land boundary dispute between two peoples who were entitled to the same patch of land. So this is what Israel should be saying publicly about Britain. Israel doesn't say anything about this, ever.
She seemed to mention international law quite a lot there, and it doesn't sound like she's a fan of Britain because of what they did, apparently. It's quite shocking to hear that. A lot of the look, don't forget the founders of the Zionist movement had to attack British targets. They had to prize this land that they saw as being promised to them out of the hands of the British. And the international law that she's talking about there, I assume she's referring to the Balfour Declaration, which promised to make a Jewish homeland in the land of Palestine. It mentions specifically that nothing must be done to compromise the inhabitants already living there. The Holy Land is holy for Jews, of course, and Jewish people have lived there for millennia, even after they were expelled. There were many pockets of Jewish community still living there. There is a continual line of Jewish inhabitants in that region, but they've never been the only people that lived there. You've only got to pick up the Bible and you you can read about the Samaritans that lived in Samaria, as they call it, Judea and Samaria, the West Bank. They were not Jews. They were Samaritans. And there are many other ethnicities and religions that have lived in that country. So why would it be, as she put it, only for the Jews? And when the agreement said nothing must be done to compromise the people already living there. So why would you have a country for only one religion? Is it a religion? What are they referring to when they talk about a ancestral homeland? So if you convert to Judaism, are you part of that? Are you part of the identity? If that's not your ancestral homeland, but you've converted, are you not accepted? Pleb Lordy is saying it's an ethno-religious conflict, and there are extremists on both sides. There will never be peace until one aid wins outright. What's that going to look like when someone wins? Then how does that look? What does victory look like? I was having a similar discussion about the war in Ukraine recently, and people say, "Oh, Russia have nearly won," or "Russia are never going to win." What does winning look like in that country, in any war? As Trump said, I want them to stop killing each other. But isn't that what you want first and foremost? Never mind what the country's called. Stop killing people and let the people live where they've lived for thousands of years. But yeah, I appreciate you sharing that with me, Pleb Lordy. If you want to say anything on the video, you can click the link. You don't have to turn the camera on if you don't want. We can do voice only. Up to you. Let's see what other videos have we got. People getting arrested in London, an NHS doctor arrested. A lot of people getting arrested in England for things they say. We don't really have, well, you can't say anything these days, can you? This is not good news. Hindus are being lynched in Bangladesh by radical Islamists. Is this another example of where a 2-state or a 3-state solution didn't? I can't even show you this video. It's too graphic, but it purports to be footage of a mob lynching someone in Bangladesh. India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh used to be one big country. It used to be India. But I went to a meeting one time with a group that are very much, I can't remember the name of the group, but they were very much peace and love, and they had representatives of the Jewish community, representatives of other faith communities. And they were sort of very pro 2-state solution. The 2-state is going to sort everything out. And I said, is there any example of where this has happened somewhere else and it has worked? And the guy kind of pointed at India and Pakistan, and then what became Bangladesh, as a example of how it can work, or how it did work. But well, not if you've just seen the video I've just seen. That's not an answer. And there's people on the wrong side of the so-called wrong side of the border, and they're being lynched. Horrific. Yeah. So I don't know if anyone wants to jump on. I did message a couple of the regular guys that usually jump on here, Saj and Omar, but no one seems to have picked up the phone. But that's all right. Here's Pleb Lordy saying, "There's no perfect solution, but it is generally more peaceful to have a nation in which each group predominates. Otherwise, you just have endless civil strife." Doesn't the strife come from when one group dominates another? Isn't that the problem? Germany is about half Catholic, half Protestant, and no one has an issue because they're both pretty much equal. Being Catholic or being Protestant doesn't exclude you from getting a job in Germany. It doesn't really make you superior to someone else. But in the north of Ireland for a very long time, in the 6 counties, being in one community meant you were in an advantageous position over the other. I think that's why you got the conflict. If you had one state solution from the river to the sea and everyone genuinely lived as equals, then surely that wouldn't that be a better option? Why have we got to have one state for one? Pleb Lordy is saying, not in the Middle Ages when people took their Christianity seriously. Half and half usually means a very violent situation. Okay, so maybe it's because the people, Ireland is probably stuck in the Middle Ages to some extent. Maybe the people in Germany, they are Catholic or they are Protestant, but they're not really following the religion. I remember hearing somewhere in psychology that the only thing you need in order for 2 groups of people to hate each other is a perceived imbalance. As soon as you put random people into 2 different groups and you treat one better than another, naturally we go into that sort of tribal instinct. I think it was the prison. What was that prison called? Where they did the experiment. Was it the Stanford prison, where they made some people prison guards and some people prisoners, and they immediately started hurting each other or being antagonistic to each other. There's a good documentary recently on Channel 4, I think it was, Banged Up, where they put celebrities into prison with ex-cons and got them to act out how that they would have behaved when they were in prison. And then all these actors and celebrities got a taste of what it's like to be behind bars. I was banged up abroad very briefly in Lebanon. Me and a friend spent 2 nights behind bars for nothing, for something we didn't even do. But I'll tell you more about that another time. What else is in the news? I saw the Macarena dance was being performed in London. Does that pass for news these days? I'm going to show it if I can avoid the copyright strike. Goodness. Hey, Macarena. Oh, let's tell me about. Yeah, people were doing the dance routine. Do you remember when that song went viral in the 90s and everyone sort of learned the dance routine? And 30 years on, people are still doing it. Amazing. That a dance could bring people together on the streets of London. And I think the backlash is that there's this idea that London's not safe. You can't go anywhere in London. If you walk more than 4 meters, someone will stab you. But they're having a Christmas fun on the streets of London. Captain Captain 9588, I don't know what the 88 stands for, says, Islam living its Middle Ages now. It never ended for them. And I can see his avatar. You've got the Palestinian flag in there, but I can't read it. Well, yeah, in the Islamic calendar, if you want to do it mathematically, or what year are we in? 1400 and something. Does that mean it's the Middle Ages? What were the Middle Ages? What were the Dark Ages? Is that the same time? The Dark Ages and the Middle Ages. Of course, famously, when Europe had its Dark Ages, Islam was thriving, and they preserved a lot of the wisdom from the Greek and Roman civilizations, a lot of the medicine. Johnny Boy is saying Islam is satanic to Christianity. Satanic to Christianity. Well, is it satanic to anything else? What I mean, Satan is a Abrahamic concept, isn't it? What do you mean by satanic? You see, there are people that genuinely believe that they are Satanists. It is a religion or an identity. And then you've got Luciferians as well. Lucifer. There's a difference between Satanism and Luciferianism. And we did have a dear friend that used to come on this channel, who was very well versed in all things esoteric. And he could have told us all about it if he was here tonight. Pleb Lord is saying Islam is in the Middle Ages assumes a kind of progress in which Islam develops, like Christianity. No reason to assume that. So Pleb Lord is sort of saying Islam is stuck in the mud and it's never going to move on. And this is as good as it gets. Okay. But there were a lot of like Muslim scientists, mathematicians and whatnot, were they not, Pleb Lordy? Did Islam and Islamic civilization not advance greatly at one point when Europe was kind of behind? Are we only looking at where we are right now rather than the grand scheme of things? I don't know. Yeah. Here's Pleb Lordy again. The fundamental issue with Islam vis-a-vis the West is that it lacks secularism. There isn't really a church and state. I like your use of vis-a-vis and secular. Another word for secular is worldly, seclorum, nouveau ordo seclorum, a new world order, a new secular order. And we've all read that on the back of the dollar bill. So you would like secular Islam? Well, Jewish people found a way of being Jewish, yet somehow secular, as we've got this concept of secular Jews. And I suppose there are a lot of Christian people now who are sort of identifying with being Christian, like Tommy Robinson, who I think always said he was an atheist, although I don't know if he does believe in God or not. Maybe he does now. He's sort of coming around to the Christian identity. So, yeah, can you be secular and religious? I mean, I thought secular was the opposite of religious, but maybe you can retain religious identity without actually being religious. Captain is saying, is it Islamic religion to ignore and remain silent on Islamic atrocities in its name? Well, I haven't been to every Islamic country, but I've been around sort of the Middle East, and anywhere you mention the name of IS, the Islamic so-called state. I mean, their name is Mud. They call them Daesh, and it's a name that they don't like, and it's kind of like a pejorative name. So in the Muslim countries, people will openly condemn and abhor what's done by that group, for example. Maybe when people of a Muslim identity are in the West and people criticize them, sometimes people may feel criticized in the name of the terrorist group, and then maybe people are reluctant to condemn. But absolutely, you've written atrocities in capital letters, and we should all condemn atrocities, whomever has committed them. But sometimes some people find it difficult to do that. Okay. Johnny Boy is saying satanic is evil. Islamics are evil to Christians. Okay. Islamic are evil to Christians, certainly, but it happens. There is a verse in the Quran that mentions to the Muslims that they will find in time to come the closest in love and affection to them will be the people that say, we are Christians. So I don't know what this verse means, but the verse is there. There's a verse in the Quran that says the closest friends the Muslims will find will be a people that say, we are Christians. I don't know which Christians that is. I mean, we could have a guess. Your guess is as good as mine, but the Quran mentions there will be friendship with this group who say they are Christians. We don't know. Maybe a scholar could tell me. Pleb Lloyd is saying, I'm saying your assumptions of what is good are Western. Yeah, what is good? Do we all sort of innately know what is good and what is bad? And Captain is saying, was Palestine October 7th a distraction from Nigeria and Sudan? Well, it depends where you focus, isn't it? Certainly, there are horrible things going on in all three of those countries, and one does not make another right or another wrong. The guy who just wrote atrocities in capital letters will tell you that. Pleb Lordy is saying, secularism is a way of structuring the society. It's not a euphemism for atheism. Okay, but what's the etymology, Pleb Lordy? Does secular come from the word worldly? Does it refer to the world? I believe that is the origin of the word. And it doesn't have to be, you're right, atheist is a different word. Atheist is lacking God. Secular is, would it be not like, is it anything to do with the church and state? Because England is an officially Church of England country. That's the official, the head of the church is the head of state, King Charles. But I would say the majority of people are quite secular. And here's Captain saying, why do Western Muslims support killing of innocent people? They supposedly flee, yet wave flags of terror states like Palestine. Well, Palestine's not a state. Okay. There is no Palestinian state yet. And part of what denotes someone being a terror group, I would guess, is a non-state actor, mean, people accuse Israel of being a terror state. And as much as that soundbite sounds correct, possibly, and the founders of the state certainly were armed groups, militant paramilitaries, whatever you want to call them, that used violence. But once you become a state, are you still a terrorist, or now are you now a state that needs to be held to account under international law, and you could commit war crimes as a state, whereas if you're an armed group without a state, you would be guilty of terrorism. Doesn't make one right or one wrong, or one worse than another, but when there's a lot of mud that gets flung around, people that get called a terrorist want to sort of say, "Oh no, I'm not a terrorist. You're a terrorist," whereas your enemy might be guilty of a different crime. They're still guilty, but it might be, if we're talking technical, I'm not a lawyer, but they might be guilty of a different, equally bad crime. And Nizam, who is commenting, said, secularism does not work for Islam because the Prophet was a political leader. That's a good point. What we know of Jesus, he never, in his lifetime, some say he's still alive, not in his time on earth did he establish a state. He talked about being a king and establishing a kingdom, but that was later interpreted to be, a spiritual kingdom. That he was arrested and either executed or attempted to be executed because he was a threat to the secular state of the ruling people at the time. But many Christians would argue he was talking about a spiritual kingdom, not of this world. Stephen Moore is saying it is the devil's religion. Well, the devil does believe in God according to all the traditions. And Nizam is saying Christianity only hitched the political wagon 300 years after Jesus. That's a good analogy. Hitching the political wagon. I'm going to use that one, Nizam, with your permission, of course. And Pleb Lordy is talking about worldly authority versus the church. It's separated in the Western tradition as state and church. Of course, you, unless you live in the Vatican City. And Grant Rosendahl is saying England is Muslim. Is it Sunni or Shia, Grant? I'd love to know. Johnny Boy is saying radical Islamics, radical Jews, and radical Catholics will never agree on much. However, Catholics and Jews are not touring the world killing Muslims just because they ate Muslims. Okay, I take your point there, Johnny. There's not, you're not finding terror attacks in the name of Catholicism. You're pointing out. I mean, Tony Blair and George Bush apparently prayed together. Is that right? Before the Iraq War, and Tony Blair became a Catholic around that time. George W. Bush was some kind of Christian. Would he be Baptist? I think he's from the Bible Belt. Zoru is saying the Antichrist is strong in this chat. What do you mean, or who do you mean by the Antichrist, Zoru? Because remember, Antichrist is a Greek word. It doesn't mean going against Christ. It means posing as the Christ. The Antichrist will pose as the Christ, will claim to be the Christ. That's what the Antichrist is, not someone who goes against Jesus. JFDKF Chief is saying Islam is death cult. Okay. No explanation on that. But as ever, look, all opinions are welcome here. They do not reflect my opinions. I just want us to have a little bit of a discussion, share the opinions. I'm not saying you're right or wrong. I believe in freedom of speech, and I think we'll have a greater chance of peace if we can all express our opinions, even if they are differing or opposing. Final call, if anyone would like to get on the screen, you don't have to show your face. I know a lot of you are shy. You can click the link in the description. You can turn the camera off and have a chat if you want. No pressure. And FJDKF Chief is saying, Muslims say the live death more than Jews. He means they love death more than Jews love life. Yeah, I've heard that phrase thrown around. It does sound a bit shocking to hear that. But maybe if you've grown up under a brutal military occupation all your life and it's all you've known, maybe you're probably suffering from PTSD and that sort of thing. Johnny Boy is saying, double tap the screen and subscribe. I really appreciate you saying that, Johnny Boy. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Phil Darajariel is saying, hi, man. I'm gay, by the way. And you look hot, man. Love you, man. Oh, dear me. I mean, it is very dark in here. That's the good thing. Thanks for that, Phil Fragirial. Thanks, man. And he's giving lots of love and hearts and etc. Okay. Ellumind is saying, y'all should read the Talmud, by the way. I know that there's quite a bit of crazy talk in the Talmud, but I believe that the way that the Talmud was compiled, rather like the Hadith, which you can find all sorts of crazy, comments, stories, answers in there if you don't filter through it and read it in context. It wrote down everything. Everything at the time was written down. I'm just sorry if the sound cut out. I was mentioning that the Talmud. The reason why a lot of craziness is in there apparently is because everything was written down, and some of it is not accurate, is not canonical. Don't take it as gospel. It's just someone's commentary at the time, but it doesn't mean that it's religiously binding upon believers of today. So look, if you go through any book that thick, you're going to find weird bits out of context, especially if it's thousands of years old. Yeah, and equally with the Hadith, thousands of years old or 1,500 years old. Many of it not authentic, some of it more authentic than others. And unless don't run before you can walk. If you're an expert on the Quran, maybe then start looking into the Hadith and what they might mean. The same with the Bible, and the Bible is a big thick book. Before you go delving into the Talmud, but yeah, people do like to throw it around. Gemma is saying Islam is a cult instilled to contemptible children made to follow Quran to the letter. It's not their fault that they all became sheep in following a cult. Well, didn't Jesus say be more like the sheep than the goats? They are just brain dead. I mean brainwashed. Okay. I think Omar is in the chat. Omar, if you want to jump on, you could do. Yeah, he's there. People don't know the Talmud is a collection of opinions. Yeah, there you go. That's what I was trying to say. The Talmud is opinions. It's not obligatory. Only anti-Semites use the Talmud as an argument. When you hear the Talmud brought up, unless you're an expert on scholarship, why are you even bringing it up? Omar, you're welcome in. How you doing? I can
Fine,
see
sir.
Omar.
Yourself?
I don't know if I can hear you. Yeah, all good, mate. All good. Thanks for joining me late in the day.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. We got onto the Talmud for some reason,
Okay.
but I started off with Tommy. Did you see him getting put under pressure in Dubai?
Tommy Robinson, yes, I did, sir. I think you have frozen. Yes, you have, and you can't hear me. Is that correct?
No, I can hear you.
No, you
Go
can't.
ahead. I was going to tell everyone that you bullied Tommy Robinson in school, and you're the reason he doesn't like Muslims.
Well, even if I bullied Tommy Robinson, I'm very ashamed to have done anything at that age, really. But I think Tommy Robinson is a grown man, and he would know that if he was bullied by Muslims, they were just kids, and you can't base anything around kids. Today, I watched something on Instagram, which was white young kids. They were asked to verify which one of the dolls was pretty and which was ugly.
Oh no! And what did they say?
All of them picked the white one. Intelligent one was white, and the darker ones were ugly and unattractive and stupid. And I thought to myself, why would you ask kids to do that? Kids, you can't base anything around what kids think.
True.
And similarly with Tommy Robinson, he shouldn't base anything around what happened when he was a young kid, even if he was bullied, which I don't think he was.
Johnny Boy saying straight away brings it to white kids. Okay. Oh, sorry about that, Johnny Boy. Yeah.
Well, and I'm not blaming the white kids. I'm just saying that why was the investigation done as such, or the theory or the test taken towards kids? Take it towards grown people. Kids don't know what on earth they're talking about. They were probably 5 years old, and the whole world is now somehow racist because of this. I mean, I'm sure. Have you heard of this investigation? This test that was done. I think it was done about 20 years ago. Also,
I have heard of it. I'm just going to read the comment. Why you use word as occupying power against Israel? You did not answer that. This person obviously wants to know why I said that Israel are the occupying power. Well, the West Bank is under a military occupation, and if you grow up there as a Palestinian, the only Israelis you'll encounter are soldiers and settlers, often armed and violent. And it's quite a suffocating experience to be surrounded by that. That was why I said that. But Omar, I've got to jump off, mate. I appreciate you joining me, but this will have to be continued, and we'll have to reconvene. Well, I want to come and see you soon anyway.
it would be my pleasure.
To do.
And if the last thing, if I can say, the gentleman posed the question, why did you, as you rightly said, it's suffocating. What's also suffocating, obviously not to the same level, is people not understanding something so basic. There are people who cannot freely go anywhere, who don't have an airport that they can just fly anywhere, who are restricted from doing anything and everything. They have to stop at several checkpoints. You've been there, you've seen it yourself.
He's making the point that if you don't have a country, you can't be occupied, because who are they occupying it from? The argument being Jordan occupied it until 1967, and now it's under. What do you want to call it then? if you're surrounded by soldiers and checkpoints and little towns that you can't go to for only one ethnicity. What do you call that? It's a bizarre scenario. I've walked through it with a British passport, and that was tough enough. Never mind being a local with Palestinian documents without a passport. 17
Well, it
new
goes to also
settlements agreed upon today. Yeah, mad. And they're nutters, these people. They are,
well, it's not,
many of them are lunatics.
They may be nutters, but they're very, very powerful. It's just the whole world. Like, even our prime minister here in this country, I thought it was career suicide when he said on Nick Ferrari show that yes, the Israelis have a right to restrict water, food, and electricity from hospitals or from schools or from anywhere. I thought it was over, but what happened? The antithesis happened. He became the prime minister with the highest vote Labour has ever seen.
He's I know, but now he's the most unpopular prime minister ever. I don't know how that happened. Well, I do know, but I don't know how you can be so hated yet get elected with so many votes. It's very strange. It's a weird democracy. But look, Omar, I will give you a shout tomorrow, mate. I appreciate you jumping on.
Absolute pleasure.
And
all the best. Pleasure.
We will catch up soon. Good night,
Goodbye.
Bye. See you.